My name is Dorothy Schrage, and I'm here representing Commander Barbara Ellen Miller, United States Navy Nurse Corps, retired. And I wish she could be here today, but I have her blessing to tell her story. Barbara is from the Hudson Valley in New York State, and upon getting her master's degree at the University of Maryland, she was just finishing up, and she was walking down the street and saw a sign that said, "Join the Navy, see the world." And it wasn't anything that she had been interested in, but in 1962, she decided that it was a wonderful way for her to travel and serve her country, which she did for 20 years. Barbara has a wonderful career. She was, in 2008, the first woman veteran inducted into the Connecticut Veterans Hall of Fame by then Governor Jody Rell. And Barbara has had an over 50-year career in nursing. So most notably, Barbara spent time in Yokosuka, Japan. She arrived there in 1966, I believe. And when she arrived, she worked in the hospital there. And it was during the time of the Vietnam conflict. And within a week's time of their nearly 100 patients, there had been a bombing in Saigon, and some nurses were killed, and the conflict escalated. As a result, within a week's time, she was faced with going from 100 patients to 800 wounded U.S. American soldiers. And during that time, she spent much of her time in dealing with the wounded, with limbs and other horrific consequences of that conflict. One of the things that happened while she was there, one of the many things, was that Barbara was a supervisor, and she had a whole ward full of wounded soldiers who had lost limbs, and many were in traction. And it's a long story, but just to say there was a fire creeping up an electrical fire started at the hospital, and Barbara came upon the scene and quickly went into action, as she always did. And she grabbed a big shears off the wall that were there on the wall for the soldiers to be able to wrap gifts to send home. And she yanked it off the wall, she says supernaturally. And she went down the rows and told the wounded men, "This is going to hurt." And she snapped all their tractions. And then the orderlies and corpsmen wheeled everyone out. And she saved many lives that day. Another really remarkable thing that happened was that when she did arrive back in the States, she was stateside for a while, a couple of years, and she was in California, and she was asked to be one of the very few nurses that were in to be able to take care of the crew of the USS Pueblo. The Pueblo was a ship during that time, during the conflict, that was not armed. It was a communications ship, and they were taken by the North Koreans. And they were tortured prisoners of war for over a year. They came back. They were rescued. They came back. It was 1968, and it was Christmas Eve. And Barbara was their night nurse, and she cared for that crew. And it's hard for her to talk about that situation. but she was a remarkable woman, and she cared for them with grace and dignity and helped them to get back to as much wholeness as possible. One funny thing that happened was when she was in education at Bethesda at another point in her career. She worked in education and research, and she was asked by one of the duty doctors to take care of a chimpanzee that was in the basement. When she went down to the basement, there was a chimpanzee there, and she was supposed to feed him banana and give him water, which she dutifully did every hour. She would go down and care for him. And unfortunately, he did appear to pass away. And so she contacted the doctor. The doctor came down and said, I'm amazed that you kept him alive that long. They didn't expect him to live. He was quite ill. So the rest of her career, many of her nursing wonderful friends would always say that she couldn't even take care of a chimpanzee. So that was kind of a funny story. Barbara did, in 1975, receive the rank of commander, and she retired in 1982 after a wonderful career, and went on to teach at Lawrence and Memorial Hospital in education for another 20 years. She's a remarkable woman, and a life well lived. All through her life, she wanted to serve her country and travel, and she certainly did.
What do you think, since you know Barbara so well, that you think she wished people knew about veterans?
So what I believe Barbara would want people to know about veterans is that they love their country, and they have a heart to serve, and she certainly did. And she loved her service. She loved the military, she loved the Navy, she loved the Nurse Corps, and she loved serving, and she was very proud of that. When she came home from Japan, there were different occasions where she was not treated so well. And one time she was taking a flight cross-country from one duty station to the next, and a woman sat next to her and then asked to change her seat when she found out that she was in the Navy, even though she was U.S. Navy Nurse Corps. And her whole objective in life was to serve her country by caring for military members, and certainly for wounded, which she did. But she always said that the best way she got through any situation in her career was with a smile, a good sense of humor, and her faith in God. And she loved her country, and she would love to be here today, but unfortunately she can't.
And just finally, just bringing upon the fact that, she was a woman serving in the military in this time when that was not common. Beyond that story of the person in the airport, did she ever share with you anything about recognizing the fact how incredible that was to be a woman in that time and to be there serving from a woman's perspective?
So Barbara's very proud of her service, and very proud of the fact that she was a career woman and dedicated her life to that. And the Navy nurses were a very close-knit group of people, and they encouraged each other and celebrated each other, but they also had a lot of fun together. And when possible, they certainly made every opportunity of their duty station. So it could be hard at times, but one of the things Barbara did all the time was have a book with her. She took a book everywhere. Well, she is an avid reader, but also when she went Many times she would have to eat alone in a duty station or in an airport or in a public setting. And she would have her book and she would put her nose in that book, and somebody may have sent her a drink or whatever. She would always send it back. She wouldn't even look to see who. She just had she was a very professional person. She knew what she was doing. She knew what she wanted. And she wasn't going to let anybody intimidate her at all. And they didn't. So she wanted a career, she wanted to travel, and she did.
That's amazing. Thank you. Anything else that you want to share about Barbara that you haven't yet, or?
Well, I would say that the one thing I would like to share is that Barbara does not have any living relatives, and so this is important for me because I want her legacy to carry on. She is an amazing woman who served our country, who served us, and provided for us, and there are many wounded that she helped to get back to wholeness, and probably remember her very well. And I just thank you for this opportunity because I want her to be remembered.